Scions would like to thank and recognize all of those who contributed to this memorial being erected, and to those who organized this memorial service to the 550th Infantry Airborne Battalion.
rise for the national anthem of the Federal Republic of Germany and the United States of America. The anthems will be sung by Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Jacob Barnes. And then please remain standing for the invocation.
Einigkeit und Recht und Freiheit für das deutsche Vaterland. Danach lasst uns alle streben, brüderlich mit Herz und Hand. Einigkeit und Recht und Freiheit sind das Glückes Unterpfand. Blüh im Glanze dieses Glückes, blühe deutsches Vaterland. Blüh im Glanze dieses Glückes, blühe deutsches Vaterland. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please remain standing afterward for the invocation offered by Chaplain Aaron Cope.
Hello, everyone. It is wonderful to be here on this moment. And for those of you who have been staying here in this hotel, off on the side, as you go to your meals, there's a piano. And on top of the piano is this Bible, a German Bible, an illustrated Bible. Of course, the Bible has the words, but the illustrated Bible has a few paintings in it to kind of bring our imagination to life. And with that thought, would you please pray with me? Father, I thank you for this moment. We are here on the battlefield, and we are witnessing what happened with the 17th Airborne. We have been to the battle sites, Lord. We have the presence of the veterans here with us, Lord, to take it to the next level. We are seeing history firsthand, Lord. And I pray, God, that we remember the sacrifice of the greatest generation, that we see their example, what they did, and that we, in some small way, apply this example to our lives, Lord, to our circumstances back home, to wherever we go, Lord. I pray that we remember and that we follow as well. Lord, I dedicate this ceremony to the memories of the veterans and the 17th Airborne, and I thank you for this moment. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gerald O'Brien, President, 17th Airborne Division, Scions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Guten Tag. As pointed out, I'm Jerry O'Brien. I've met almost all of you here. You know that my father was Second Lieutenant John O'Brien, who was a member of the 466 Parachute Field Artillery Battalion of the 17th Airborne, and who died a short distance from this very spot 80 years ago today. So it's my honor to be here at this ceremony and to represent all of the family members of troopers who participated in Operation Varsity. I want to thank all of you for coming to the ceremony to honor those men who participated in Operation Varsity 80 years ago. Operation Varsity was an enormous military operation. It was a master feat of organization, a result of industrial might, but impossible without these especially brave and skilled young men. We are disappointed that we do not have a surviving veteran of the 17th Airborne to make this trip and attend this ceremony with us. But on the other hand, we are elated and extremely proud and privileged to have Mr. Shrink, who is sitting here in the first row. Mr. Shrink was a member of the 8th Air Force and a turret ball gunner, if I'm not mistaken. And it is such an honor for us to have you here. Your presence just lends so much more personal impact to all of us because you, in effect, represent your comrades who fought in this operation and many of whom lost their lives here. So thank you very much, sir, for coming all the way.
You're very welcome.
And And he has an amazing story that I read online. Before I yield the podium to Mr. Johnson, who is the manager of the hotel, I want to thank him again and his partners for allowing us to have this beautiful monument on their hotel property and for being such good friends to our veterans and to our group, the Scions. So thank you, Mr. Johnson, and I will now yield the podium to him.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome here to the historical grounds of the Hotel Haus Duden. Why historical? Why Hotel Haus Duden? Maybe just for some of you who do not know, here in 1829, Konrad Duden was born, and he was the person who took all the German different dialects, put them all together, and made one official German language, which he then also wrote down in this book, which is called the Duden, which is a synonym for a dictionary. Used today, still very much, no matter if we have Google, Siri, whatever, we still need this because this is how we write our German language. The second reason, and this is the main reason why you're all here today, is to honor and commemorate the historical battle that took place here. I would also like to thank all of the veterans that we have here, but I would also like to commemorate this ceremony a little bit to all the people from the past, present, and the future who stand up and fight for the rights for democracy and also for democracy itself. I think that's also very important in these days that we are living through right now. I was told I have 3 minutes. I think I stayed in my 3 minutes. I hope. And I would like to hand over the microphone to Lieutenant Colonel Ring, who just needs a second. And I wish you all a pleasant day. Enjoy.
Okay, I get the rest of his time. Somebody else's probably too. Thank you for being here, sir. I salute you and your entire generation. I don't think I could have had the cojones to strap myself in a ball turret. I'd rather jump out of airplanes, right? Some people think that's crazy. On the 24th of March, 1945, the U.S. Army's 17th Airborne Division led the largest single-day airborne operation in the history of the world and supported the Allied crossing of the Rhine into the industrial heartland of Germany, right here. Today we remember and commemorate the historic operation on its 80th anniversary on this hallowed ground at the 17th Airborne Division Monument, and it's certainly an honor for me to represent the paratroopers and the glidermen who descended from the heavens on that day. I had the distinct honor and privilege of commanding the 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 1st Battalion 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment, actually a short while or so after Operation Varsity, but still got to meet a whole lot of the veterans that were on this operation. The 507th was the lead regiment on the airborne operation, which saw a constant stream of aircraft overhead for over 4 hours delivering combat power across the Rhine. I knew several of the members of the 507th veteran paratroopers from World War II. My regiment had jumped into Normandy and lost a significant percentage of the paratroopers in just less than a month of combat there. They were pulled back to England to refit and reorganize, and then assigned to the new 17th Airborne Division. The next time they would see action was at the Battle of the Bulge, and reinserted into the problem on Christmas Day, 1944. They had many acts of valor during that brutal combat, and again, many casualties. The veteran paratroopers that I knew identified with each other based on whether they were originals that had trained together for 2 years at Fort Benning and into Alliance, Nebraska, and so on before deploying to England and then to D-Day. Those are the originals. And then there were those who fought at the Bulge and beyond, and those who fought at Varsity and beyond through the Army of Occupation. They sort of identified with each other, but they were all brothers. Of course, there were some in there that were also taken prisoner along the way and released afterwards, and they really only got the part that they were into, but they were all brothers. And during our regimental reunion, while I was in command, we had several Operation Varsity veterans at location at Fort Benning, and we built a terrain model about the size of this patio, and it covered this whole area and the whole operation. And then we had actual veterans from each part of the battle walk through the battle and describe it and sort of educate our non-commissioned officers, and soldiers on what happened here at Operation Varsity. So that was a very awesome event on Friar Drop Zone several years ago. Oh, by the way, we also conducted an airborne operation from a C-47 that had dropped here at Varsity during the day. And so that was pretty neat to get about 16 of our current paratroopers out the aircraft in front of their veteran brothers. I think of some of those that I knew. I think of John Hinchcliffe, Dante Tony Guzzo, Roy Creek, Frank Naughton, are just a few of the names that immediately come to my mind that fought here, jumped in, and fought here in Operation Varsity. They represented the officer corps, non-commissioned officers, and enlisted paratroopers, and they are my absolute heroes. Unfortunately, they've all passed on, but I thank God every day that they lived. They were average Americans doing extraordinary things and continue to be larger than life for the rest of their life. Paratroopers are a special breed of soldier. Glidermen are too. So are ball turret gunners. They're volunteers. Even those that were drafted volunteered to be paratroopers and glidermen. You can't volunteer somebody to jump out of an airplane. They've got to volunteer. And it's still that way today. They do get a little extra pay, but the bonds that are forged through hard training and combat are worth much more than the little extra pay that they get. That goes for World War II veterans as well as all those who have followed. I'm grateful to have followed in the footsteps of the heroes, of those heroes, and I'm proud that my own sons and son-in-law and daughter-in-law have done the same. We come from all walks of life and from every demographic that some people out there would like to use to force division amongst us, but paratroopers are not divided, they are united. When you exit an aircraft somewhere around the globe after going through an emergency N-hour sequence, loading aircraft, flying for hours, rigging, being inspected, and now it's 0-200 in a foreign land, and you have no control who you're going to land near, it doesn't matter. None of those demographics matter at all. Whoever you land by, they're now your best friend, and you're theirs, right? They're your brother or sister in arms. They're your lifeline. and you're the same for them. There's no time for differences, and the only time to form little groups of paratroopers, or LGOPs, who know only to move to the objective, the sound of the guns, and kill everybody that's not dressed like them. These were the men of the 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment and the entire 17th Airborne Division. There was immense valor displayed through this operation. Private George Peters of G Company, 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment, was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously for his actions near Florennes when he landed near a machine gun along with several other paratroopers who got hung up in trees and were unable to quickly get off the drop zone and out of danger. Machine gun engaged those that were snagged and incapable of defending themselves. Private Peters sacrificed himself by drawing fire from the machine gun in a one-man advance. Being mortally wounded, he continued his advance and in his dying action employed grenades into the machine gun position and killed the crew, thereby saving a whole bunch of others. I didn't know George Peters, obviously, but I did know Tony Guzzo, who everybody called Tony Guzzo. To be honest, I thought his name was Tony Guzzo, but that was actually his last name. He was quite a character, sort of a wise guy from the city, right? He was an awesome individual who was most often the center of the attention wherever he was. He was a great paratrooper, and his life reminds me of so many other paratroopers that I've known. I'm going to now read from an account of Tony's Distinguished Service Cross as it's documented on the Hall of Valor, because this really explains in short detail Tony Guzzo. Following the D-Day invasion, Tony Guzzo was busted from sergeant to private shortly after the 507th returned to Nottingham from Normandy. Like I said, he was kind of a wise guy. You can get in trouble in England with all those pubs and everything, especially after a month of combat. He then volunteered for duty at the 17th Airborne, but upon finding it not to his liking, requested to return to the 507th. At odds with his command structure, despite a refusal, Tony Guzzo caught a ride back to the 507th PIR, which is where Colonel Raff, the commander, furiously busted him to private again. Colonel Raff remarked that Tony Guzzo wasn't fit to be a paratrooper and transferred him to the services company and didn't allow him initially to go with the regiment into Belgium in the Battle of the Bulge. He got there eventually. When Colonel Raff ended up pinning the Distinguished Service Cross on Tony Guzzo after Operation Varsity, Private First Class Tony Guzzo remarked, "Colonel, you still think I'm not qualified to be a paratrooper?" His medal citation reads this way: "For extraordinary heroism in connection with military operations against an armed enemy while serving in Company C, 1st Battalion, 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 17th Airborne Division, in action against enemy forces on 9th April 1945 near Essen, Germany. When his platoon was pinned down by intense machine gun fire from two mutually supporting pillboxes, Private First Class Tony Guzzo arose on his own initiative and with complete disregard for his personal safety in the face of heavy automatic weapons fire, stormed the nearest pillbox. He threw a hand grenade into the emplacement, killing 2 enemy and causing 9 others to surrender. Then, still alone, he unhesitatingly moved against the second pillbox, again exposing himself to intense machine gun and sniper fire. He threw another grenade, which killed 1 enemy and forced another 5 to surrender. The extraordinary heroism, personal courage, and devotion to duty displayed by Private First Class Tony Guzzo were a great inspiration to the men in his platoon and were materially responsible for their advance to the final objective. Private First Class Tony Guzzo's extraordinary heroism, personal bravery, and zealous devotion to duty exemplify the highest traditions of the military force of the United States and reflect great credit upon him, the 17th Airborne Division of the United States Army." He was my friend, and he was a fellow paratrooper. We're from a different generation, but we're brothers. When I was in command of the 507th, he used to visit for every function that we had, and he'd always ask me, where the building was that was supposed to be named after him. I guess somebody in the past had promised him that. It wasn't me. I always responded that in order to have a building named after you, you have to be dead. That usually ended his pursuit of the topic. Once I get back there, I plan on making sure there is a building named after the character that was Dante Tony Guzzo. Thank you to the Hotel House Duden for hosting this event and for maintaining the 17th Airborne Division Monument. Our allies these days are as important as ever. Thank you all for allowing me to speak and for hearing some of the heroes that I knew in the 17th Airborne Division. Airborne.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Warrant Officer Retired David Short, 17th Airborne Division, Scions historian.
Thank you. It's a little ironic that we're standing here today on a early spring day in free Germany. You hear the birds, see the green grass, and 80 years ago it was much different. The drama that played out here was an epic drama. They came from the sky. During the latter days of World War II, the Allied command planned Operation Plunder to bound the formidable Rhine River in the north of Germany. Operation Plunder would push the British 21st Army across the Rhine River in order to allow Allied forces to flow into the heart of the North German plains, hopefully to bring the terrible 6-year war to an end. To support this operation, the 1st Allied Airborne Army, composed of the British 6th with a Canadian battalion and the American 17th Airborne Division, would conduct a simultaneous parachute and glider assault named Operation Varsity between Hammenkaum and Wesel, Germany. The objectives were clear-cut. Seize at Deersforder Forest to the northwest of here to deter German Army counterattacks, preventing the amphibious assault across the Rhine River. Also secure the Issel River and canal bridges located northeast, east, and south of here, where we now assemble, to prevent German reinforcements reaching the river and to allow those bridges to be used by the Allied armor divisions for the breakout. Lastly, attack and seize the Deerforder Castle northwest of here, which housed the German Corps headquarters, and hold and secure the airhead until relieved by the ground forces. Operation Varsity was the largest Allied airborne operation of World War II that was conducted simultaneously, involving 2 complete airborne divisions, dropping by parachute and glider. 3,500 to 4,000 aircraft would participate in the assault. Not only transport planes and gliders, but fighters for escort and ground support. Lastly, bombers from the 8th U.S. Air Force for an immediate resupply drop. Varsity would initiate shortly after the ground forces began crossing the Rhine and would be conducted during daylight hours. The Airborne Army would drop directly on top of the German defenses. The German Army's defenses on the assault area included remnants of the 6th, 7th, and 8th Fallschirmjäger divisions, well-worn parachute divisions, and the weak but experienced 84th and 180th Infantry Divisions. Upwards of 800 to 900 flat guns of all calibers have been spread across the assault area. Strong points and trenches of small groups of infantry and machine guns were established throughout the beautiful and serene farms and hamlets which dot this area. Lastly, a reserve of about 40 armored fighting vehicles from the 116th Panzer Division were located in actionable distance from the battlefields. On the morning of 24 March 1945, a loud mechanical droning could be heard approaching the Rhine from the west. As the ground grew louder and louder in intensity, it became apparent to the German defenders that a large Allied aircraft formation was approaching. The planes and gliders were carrying the Sons of America, England, and Canada. 16,000 airborne soldiers in an airstream that took over 3 hours to pass over a fixed point on the ground. Immediately, the flak guns began to target the C-47s carrying the lead element of the 17th Airborne Division, the 507th Parachute Infantry Regimental Combat Team, the attached 464th Parachute Field Artillery Battalion in Trell, and accompanied by 70th Airborne Division Headquarters Company with Major General Bud Miley and his staff. They began dropping on Drop Zone W at Fleuren, just west of here. With planes on fire and parachutes filling the sky, the paratroopers jumped from their aircraft and began attacking any German defensive positions they encountered. Flak and artillery positions were assaulted and seized. The forested Die Forderwald was cleared of German forces. The Die Fort Castle was immediately assaulted by the 1st Battalion, who were misdropped adjacent to the castle. The 3rd Battalion soon joined the fight, and the German Corps headquarters captured. All over the 507th area responsibility, small battles raged on through the day. Men died and were wounded on both sides. Jerry Cantor from Dayton, Ohio, a 507th Regimental Headquarters interrogator who spoke German and Yiddish, recalled how he landed in a tall fir tree. He was cut down by British paratroopers, and together they attacked the flak position. He sadly recalled many dead paratroopers still hanging in the trees. General Miley's assault command post was set up in a depression in Fleuren, near the football stadium present there today. With a skeleton staff, he issued orders and conducted the battle during the early hours of the assault and under enemy fire. Yet still the airborne soldiers came. The C-46 aircraft carrying the 513th Parachute Infantry Regiment with the 466 Parachute Field Artillery Battalion and C-47 aircraft in trail formation behind approached Drop Zone X, just north of here. The German flak formations, having been fully alerted to the air armada, began shooting up the formations of aircraft. The C-46s, which contained unsealed fuel tanks, were highly vulnerable to flak. Yet witnesses stated the pilots held to their drop headings until their sticks of paratroopers were able to jump at between 300 to 600 feet. And then the damaged and burning planes crashed into the surrounding area with their air crews still at the controls. To compound the difficulties that arose, the haze and smoke of the battlefield resulted in the air crews misdropping the 513th, some 2 miles distant from Drop Zone X, near Hammontown in the British landing area. The troopers, even though having landed in the wrong area, assembled, attacked, and overcame any points of opposition, making their way to the original assembly and objective areas. Bill Highfill, a headquarters 3rd Battalion machine gunner from Dayton, Ohio, remembered after landing, taking fire from every direction, and that they were in the middle of the German defenses. The 466 Parachute Field Artillery Battalion landed accurately on DZX, but tragically encountered very heavy German resistance. The artillery troopers, attempted to fight as infantry while retrieving their door bundles and parapacks containing ammunition and the parts of their 75mm pack howitzers. Many American parachute artillerymen were killed or wounded until the 513th arrived to support the beleaguered artillerymen. First Lieutenant John O'Brien was struck by machine gun fire and fell in one of those fields. Still, the airborne soldiers came. Meanwhile, on Landing Zone N, located south of Hammontown, the 139th Airborne Engineer Battalion landed in CG-4A gliders and proceeded to clear the LZ of German resistance. One of their gliders carrying demolitions exploded while approaching the landing zone. All on board were listed as missing in action. Discarded parachutes lay everywhere, and British horsed gliders were present on the landing zone, having missed their intended landing zone. As fire and smoke filled the sky, the gliders carrying the 17th Airborne Division support units arrived under German anti-aircraft and machine gun fire. Charles Davis of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, assigned to the message center of the 517th Airborne Signal Company, recalled the sound of pinging as German small arms fire penetrated the Jeep he was sitting in while strapped in the glider. After landing, he made his way to the rail line on the western side of LZN, where he saw an Allied transport plane fall from the sky and erupt into a massive explosion. Upon reaching the rail line, he encountered bloodied British glider soldiers who had mislanded on landing zone N. The glider is carrying the 224th Medical Company, the 155th Anti-Tank Anti-Aircraft Battalion, the 411th Quartermaster Company, the Ordnance and military police all arrived under similar conditions. And yet, still the airborne soldiers came. The southernmost Allied landing area was landing zone S, near Lockhaven, where we stand assembled here today. The 194th Glider Infantry Regiment and the 684th Glider Field Artillery filled the sky and the farm fields all around us here. Most of the C-47s towed 2 assault gliders, each containing an infantry squad. All around us, here on landing zone S, gliders were crashing after being hit by German fire, some blowing up in midair, a few collided with other gliders, and many were perforated by intense German automatic fire. After having landed safely, their occupants were killed or wounded in many instances. The glider troopers rushed to their objectives, the Issel bridges to our east and south, just hundreds of meters from here. Small battles erupted all over this area. The Deuden House, Haus Deuden, where we stand today, was known as a Bossig House, was a German regimental command post. Ultimately, it was seized by the troopers of the 194th Glider Infantry Regiment and used as their regimental command post. The glider field artillery of the 681st retrieved their howitzers, jeeps, and ammunition trailers from their gliders and immediately provided fire support to their beleaguered infantry. Virgil Worth from Iowa was a wireman with headquarters battery 681st Glider Field Artillery Battalion. Recalled how after landing, he attempted to extricate his jeep containing communications equipment from the glider under intense German machine gun fire. After the jeep radiator was blown out by machine gun strikes, the glider began burning. Virgil took cover and immediately made his way out on foot to the assembly area. Crashed and burning gliders lay everywhere, with dead and dying troopers scattered among them. Many of the 194's 1st Battalion gliders landed right on the canal, their noses jutting into the bottoms of the canal. Some gliders landed next to German flak positions, which resulted in small firefights at close range. The bridges were attacked and ultimately seized, dramatic coup de main assaults in spite of the German resistance. And yet, still the airborne soldiers came. Within the minutes of the last glider having landed, one last aircraft formation arrived above the Airborne Army. Hundreds of 8th U.S. Air Force converted Liberator B-24 bombers, flying at treetop level, began to drop bundles containing ammunition, medical supplies, rations, and communications equipment. Unfortunately, the German flak gunners were able to shoot down and damage many of the Liberator bombers, and their crewmen suffered heavily. But yet, in spite of the heavy flak fire and intent on the mission of resupplying the Airborne Army, the Air Corps still came on. By the evening of the 24th, save for a failed German armored counterattack on landing zone S against a provisional glider company, pilot company, hundreds of meters east of here, all the objectives of the 17th Airborne Division were secured, including the vital bridges across the Issel Canal. To the north, the British 6th Airborne Division had ably secured its objectives in a timely manner. By 25 March, a bridge was erected across the Rhine, a pontoon bridge, and units of the 21st Army were preparing to drive into northern Germany. The ground echelon of the 17th Airborne Division, with heavy vehicles, supplies, and replacement troopers, joined the rest of the division on the east bank of the Rhine. This echelon totaled approximately 4,000 soldiers. The costly and terrible war in Europe would end 6 weeks later. Where today we assemble at this memorial to remember the bravery, skill, and determination of the 17th Airborne Division. In this battle, we must remember the human cost, the hallowed fallen. The division lost 443 sons of America who were killed in the farmland and hamlets surrounding this beautiful area. Another 910 were wounded and maimed. Over 200 air crew were also killed in action. These were our fathers and our grandfathers and our uncles. They came from small towns, farms, and cities all over the United States of America. And they died to free the world of tyranny and to support freedom-loving men of all nations. The gallant 6th British Airborne Division lost over 1,400 killed and wounded in action. The German Army gave up over 3,500 prisoners, and the numbers of their fallen and wounded are still not fully known. And as in all wars, the civilians who lived here were also caught up in the battle, enduring the suffering and misery of losing family members, their homes, and livelihoods. The exploits of the 70th Airborne Division during Operation Varsity are not common historical knowledge. They slipped through the hands of history until recent years. They had been relegated to the last paragraph of the last book in a historical series comprised of multiple volumes. As freedom-loving men from all nations, we must not forget their deeds, sacrifice, and contribution to ending tyranny on this battlefield stained with the blood of their youth. Freedom is not without cost. Lastly, to your left, behind the Doyden House, is a collection point for the hallowed dead of the 17th Airborne Division. This was a temporary collection point until they could be repatriated further to the west and buried at an Allied Battlefield Monuments Commission cemetery, or repatriated back to their home, the United States of America. They came from the sky.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andrew Biggio, author of the best-selling book, The Rifle, former United States Marine, and outstanding supporter of veterans. Andrew.
Is there a particular way to hold this?
Just as long as it's working, don't mess with it.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. As I was introduced, I'm the author of a book called The Rifle, but more importantly, I'm a father. I'm a police officer back in Boston, like some of my police officer friends here who volunteered to help me on this trip with a World War II veteran. And lastly, why I'm here is because I am a veteran. And a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, but I developed a special bond with a particular veteran from the 17th Airborne Division. And he was one of those veterans that never attended a reunion, like so many, never belonged to an association. And that person was Robert White from the 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment Headquarters Company, and he was a wireman. And 4 years ago, I got to tour these very battlefields with Robert White for the first time ever. And if you have that very rare, or have had that very rare opportunity to be on the drop zone of a veteran who physically dropped in that day, it's something, a feeling that can never be matched. And Robert, who survived the Battle of the Bulge with the Purple Heart and went on to jump into Germany here, was on Drop Zone Whiskey with me and said, man, I really wish there was a monument here. Because to add insult to injury, we started our journey in Normandy, where the monuments are so abundant, almost like Gettysburg, lots of memorials. But the common theme back then was The generals didn't want to bury U.S. soldiers on German soil. They didn't want to erect monuments on German soil. But after 77 years, we thought that was time for a change. And 3 years ago, we came back here with 7 U.S. veterans and erected that monument just in time, because today there is no 17th Airborne veterans with us. So I really want to thank the 17th Airborne Association, all our donors who made that monument happen. My friend Dennis Labat, who helped construct that monument, so please give them a round of applause. Thank you. Now, all those 7 veterans haven't all passed away. Some of them have, but others are on hospice. Others cannot travel anymore, so we did it just in time. But I'm here with a very special individual on this journey, because I don't come to Europe unless I have a World War II veteran with me, all right? It's my rule for now. And that's Mr. Lester Schrenk, who's at 101 years old here, okay? 101. And similar to Bob White, I found out that when he was shot down over Denmark and captured, he spent 15 months in a prison camp. 15 months. And I found out he had never been to Stalag Luft 4 in Tyczawa, Poland, which was only 3 hours from Berlin. So I said, oh, wow, I can actually fly to Berlin, try to make it to the 80th anniversary of varsity, and at the same time bring him back to his prison camp. And just 3 days ago, he went back to his prison camp for the first time in 80 years. And what the Polish people told us who maintain the property is, we haven't seen a veteran in 20 years. So I think it's safe to say Lester was probably the last prisoner of war to ever visit that camp again. And while we're walking the camp, well, of course, he'll say, what do you mean ever again? Aren't we going to go next year too? So he doesn't quit. But while we walked the property there, he kept talking about his memories of being so hungry and so thirsty. Because when the Russians began to come towards that camp, they evacuated the soldiers and made them march for 80 days over 800 miles on a death march until they reached and got liberated by the British in and around Hamburg, Germany. So to survive the prison camp for 15 months, first of all, to survive getting shot down from a B-17 as a ball turret gunner, to land, hit the ground, get captured for 15 months, get beaten and starved, then go on an 800-mile march. If you need a story of inspiration or a story of survival, Lester's it. And when he kept talking about how hungry and thirsty he was, you know what we did? We took a bottle of Polish vodka, we cracked it open, and at 101 years old with us, we took a shot right there at the monument in Stalag Luft 4 for all those who never came home from the prison camp. So Lester, I want you to come up here right now. If you could come up here for a second. Come on up here. So we don't have any Polish vodka, but what we have is some horse soldier veteran whiskey, and we're going to take a shot for the 17th Airborne Association, for the B-17 crewmen.
What is it?
It's a little bit of whiskey. That's good there.
Don't give him more than you give me.
So in honor of all of those from the 17th Airborne and all of those Americans and allies who gave their life for us to be here today with this beautiful monument and to be here with all these beautiful people, and to Jerry O'Brien, to your father, may we always remember them. Cheers.
You take it in one gulp. I enjoy it.
There you go. Would you like to say anything?
I just want to thank everybody. You make me feel so special, and I'm not that special. My only fame is that I outlived all the rest of them. I'm just an ordinary guy.
You're far from ordinary, and I think everyone here believes that as well. Thank you, Lester.
Thank you, Andy.
I've insulted this man many times this trip, offering a wheelchair. We bring wheelchairs, and he said, how about I put you in a wheelchair? So that's Lester for you. But thank you, Colonel Ring. Thank you, the 17th Airborne. Thank you for making me a part of your family. And thanks for everyone for being here 80 years later. I'm so happy this monument can teach further people, become a milestone, just like the rest of the liberation through Europe, and Semper Fi.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you're able, if you would stand, we now invite any members of the 17th Airborne Division, Scions, or other organizations to place wreaths at the monument.
This trip has exceeded my wildest expectations. I am a grandson of a trooper, Private First Class Martin G. Cullen, 513th Company A. And, my family and I, we had decided years ago that we were going to do a little bit more research into his time into the European Theater of Operations. It was about a couple years ago that I started to recognize that the Scions of the 17th Airborne was the same association tied to what my grandfather called the Army reunion meetings that he so looked forward to in his retirement years. So, one, there was the connection directly to the association that he was a part of for his life after service. And then, with the trip here, especially for the 80th anniversary of the European Theater and the Battle of the Bulge and Operation Varsity, I couldn't pass up this trip. So, again, I've done some years of research. Belgium was an anomaly for me. I didn't really understand what those guys did. Varsity was a very well documented operation, so I knew more about that. But when I got the itinerary for the trip, I was amazed at how extensive it was and all the places that we'd be going. But then it was all the people that we've met. Just amazing from top to bottom. We've made lifelong friends here, for sure. And I plan to be involved with the organization for some time to come.
Yeah, so having attended the trip in 2015 to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Bulge and Varsity, I had pretty high expectations for coming again 10 years later. And I have to say that really my expectations were exceeded. I think the professionalism of the organization, just the friendliness and the love, particularly from our Belgian friends, made it just a great experience overall. And it's been said that this group is more like an extension of family. And I really believe that's the case. So really, really great experience for me.
My great-grandfather passed away when I was young, so I didn't really know much of his legacy. And after the trip, I have a newfound appreciation for everything that he's done, and I hope that we can carry on his legacy as a younger generation. I got to see exactly where he was 80 years ago today, so I just now have a lot more respect for him and all of his fellow comrades that were in the same battles as him, and being able to experience this with my grandpa and my father and my cousin was just I'm never going to forget it. It was life-changing for me.
My name is Mary Ellen Lechieski, and I'm the daughter of Frank Lechieski. And Frank Lechieski was a member of the 681st B Battery Battalion. You know, I think I was very excited about coming here just because it was the 80th anniversary of Operation Varsity Battle of the Bulge, and I just wanted to see where my dad was and, you know, where he spent the months, 1943 to 1946 it was. And so I wanted to see that. And then now that I'm here, especially after being here for the past 2 weeks or so, seeing the exact places that he was, it was more emotional than I thought. I just saw and felt what he had done, the sacrifices he had made with all the 17th Airborne Division, with his buddies for our freedoms, for democracy. And it was, as I said, a lot more significant in my life.
My name's Esther Starner. I am the granddaughter of James Starner. He was a part of the 194th Glider Infantry Regiment in the 17th. I was a little intimidated to come on this trip. It felt like a lot of information. I was nervous. I had just finished, I'm a historian, graduating in May. I was a little nervous to find out all this information after I'd just done a large research paper on my grandfather, and I will say I am so happy that I have come on this trip. I have learned information I couldn't have learned in 10 years of studying my grandfather. I have met people who I have made lifelong connections with, and I think that being here is so important for people not only of my generation, but the next generation to understand who their grandparents and great-grandparents were and why their generation was so impactful to the freedom and experiences that we get to see and do every single day. So I'm very thankful for my grandfather, for the wonderful memories I have with him before he passed away, and for the generation who helped save our world. Experiencing this trip with my dad was very emotional, I would say. I grew up 2 houses down from my grandfather, so we all had a very close-knit relationship, and my dad took over my grandfather's company. We all grew up very close-knit, and being able to go into this perspective with my dad, someone who is still, I've gotten a little into the information about my grandfather and he's just getting into it. So us getting to experience this trip together and understanding my grandfather from a new perspective has truly been wonderful and very, I feel it's brought us even closer together.
So 2 years ago, I was fortunate enough to travel to Paris with my family for a family vacation. And at that time, we were not aware of the Scions, but I did know that my grandfather's first action was Flamarège. So we went to Bastogne for 1 day out of that trip, rented a car, drove down, paid respects to the monument, and actually got to meet Fred DeHaan, who created the monument 20 years ago, so that was very special. And then we drove into town and went to the 101st Airborne Museum, where we saw a number of relics related to the 513th. At that museum, that was the first time that I had met Belgian locals who were deeply appreciative of the efforts that these men sacrificed and paid their lives for the freedom of Europe. And that hit home. And at first I thought it was just kind of a one-off thing. But then we came here for the trip and I realized that it is a very deep appreciation for what these men have done. And so very proud of my grandfather and the 17th Airborne and all the men and women that served in World War II.
Aside from seeing things that I really enjoyed even the first time, seeing things that were new to me this time, but also the camaraderie of being with like-minded people and having this experience is absolutely unparalleled.
My great-grandfather was in World War II, and I am one of 2 great-grandchildren on this trip, so we are the latest generation, and I hope that every great-grandchild and grandchild and great-great-grandchild continue on this legacy, because it is truly life-changing, and I got to see exactly where he was and learn so much more about what he did.
Oh, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you've got a blood connection to one of the veterans of the 17th Airborne, signing up to be a Scion keeps you in the loop in terms of information, gives you access to great resources, including a phenomenal digital archive that's under construction. And there's really little downside. You don't have to do the international travel if you don't want to. But being part of the organization, I think, is something that everyone who's related to a 17th Airborne veteran should consider.
I say just do it. I mean, if you get to come here and just walk these grounds, it's an experience that I would do.
Oh, do it. You know, it's really important that these stories, these men and women, do not get lost to history. Every single person in every one of those graves, in Margraten, in Luxembourg, in Belgium, they all have a story behind them. And learning those stories, talking to any vets who are still alive from World War II is so important.
I think what I would say to Scions in the future is just come. Just see where your father, your grandfather, your uncle, friend, whoever it was during these years, which are very special, but they just did so much. And I think being here in person, walking the land, this is sacred ground. This is holy ground that they gave their lives, and or came home with those memories. They did it for us, and they did it for all the people here. And I think it's just a matter of, not just a matter, but they did it to bring peace to the world so that we won't have wars again or conflicts. And I think that's uppermost in my mind right now.
If you're not sure, reach out to the Scions email address, give them your information about your relative, and they will respond relatively quickly. They have the full roster of troopers and glidermen. They'll be able to tell you if your grandfather was a member, and then moreover, they'll bring you into the fold. I mean, they can help you find information that you may not know. If you're on the fence of whether or not to join, I can tell you it's worth it.